Hi guys, welcome to another video on my channel. So today I'm finally getting around to it, and I know Leos can be pretty impatient, so to any Leos that might be watching this video, I'm sorry that I only just got around to doing this. I normally do on the daily pretty much, but I have been busy. Like yesterday I was out a lot socialising, and now that we finally can again, restrictions are lifting, but I won't get into depressing subjects in this video, but yeah, so I'm taking advantage of that as much as I can now that we're able to start doing that again, so I wasn't uploading yesterday. So yeah, anyway, today we're getting to the Leo video. So this is kind of now we've almost gone full circle with these description videos of the character traits of the signs, because we've now done one sign for each element, and we're going back to fire again for this video, obviously with Leo. So as I kind of said in the Aries video, it's kind of the video where I explained the most about like the modes and the elements, what they do. So yeah, with fire, the Aries is the cardinal sign, and then Leo, which obviously is the sign that is the topic of this video, Leo is the fixed fire sign. So I like to let's first introduce this video by kind of saying relationships between them. So you've got Aries, which is coordinating, it's producing this fiery energy. Leo then is going to be the one who comes to stabilize the energy, bring it down to earth. It is a little bit more grounded as the fire sign that's fixed, um, and it kind of adds extra fire, but it makes it a bit less intense in its like expression, if you like, because Aries is very aggressive in its expression of this fiery energy, and that is because one, it's the cardinal sign, and when it's creating it, it has to throw it out very forcefully. Plus, it has to have this strength and this energy and this force. Being intense because it starts the whole zodiac cycle, and obviously, if it's not a strong energetic sign, it's not going to manage to start the whole zodiac cycle, is it? So that's another thing. Plus, there will be Mars, which is the planet of physical energy and also aggression and sexuality in a masculine sense, all that kind of thing is Mars. So, Leo, they add extra fire, although they do decrease its intensity of expression. They do ground it and make it a bit more realistic than Aries. And then obviously Sagittarius will come and they will be the mutable fire mode. So they're the one who's going to adapt the fire, have it be more open to external influences. They're going to kind of like change it somewhat, but that's obviously we'll get into that in the Sagittarius video. This is for Leo, this video. So yeah, so Leo basically they kind of take the fire that Aries has released, and then obviously Aries themselves will release it, and then they'll go back to their baseline energy level where they're not releasing as much fire. And then Leo, they have this fire present within their personality, within themselves, all the time, and they're literally constantly keeping it all stocked up and ready to go. Another thing about the fixed mode though is that they do have this fire all the time. They do express it all the time as well, but they can vary. They can be variable somewhat in how much they're expressing, obviously, at a given time, moment in time. So it can be that they store the fire inside of them and they release it when they need to use it, but then they have this baseline level which is still this emission of the fire, but it's not as much. And then when they feel the need to use it, they unleash more of their inner fire outwards. Same with all the fixed signs. Obviously, I've done the Taurus video already. They're the fixed earth sign, obviously. So they will release this earth all the time. They will have this energy of earth present all the time, but they can choose to release more or less of it to the outside world dependent on situations and the situations in their life going on around them. Obviously, fire is a more sort of dynamic element than earth, so it's a bit more obvious with Leo because they fix the fire element. But sometimes, if they're in this contented state, they can release only a small amount of fire to the outside world, and they're like a storehouse for the rest of the energy that they're not actively releasing at the time. If you kind of catch my drift here, guys. So it's like they kind of throw out a little bit at all times because they have to, because they are the fixed sign, but the rest of it they kind of store inside of themselves. They kind of, Leo, they nurture their ego with this fire too, but they throw it all out when there's specific situations like require them to, or they think from their perception of things that this specific situation will require them to do that and throw out that fire. That's when they're going to throw more of it out to the outside world and people will notice it more. But they do constantly have this fire energy present within them. I'm in a real world example. I liken Leo to like a raging bonfire. Like it's huge, it is a lot of fire, but it's a bonfire. It's kind of steadily burning. Of course, bonfires eventually do still burn themselves out, but it's like Leo doesn't because the character is fixed. So it's almost like, obviously, in real life, this wouldn't be practical because eventually all fires would burn themselves out. And Leo can too, because of course, everyone will get tired, everyone will need to recharge. You know, and yeah, they're gonna obviously burn themselves out eventually. But also, I feel like fire signs can burn themselves out fairly quickly, and they all have this tendency, in a sense, to be like this because um, they are so energetic that they throw themselves into everything. They push their body physically too far sometimes, and then obviously the end result of that is that they will burn themselves out and end up with no energy and crashed out, and they'll need to like sleep that off, kind of, to rejuvenate their energy. But um, Leo is kind of the most persevering, resilient energy of fire because they are the fixed mode. They are the one that is most stubborn, though, on a slightly more negative side of things. But they are the one who will, they're kind of the fire in nature that is the hardest to put out. Like, if you think of a fire that is proven extremely challenging to put out with water or smothering it so that it doesn't receive the air's oxygen. If you think of it like that, the hardest fire to put out is what Leo would represent because they are the one who is very inward turned with their fire energy sometimes because they can store most of this energy inside of them and use it only as and when needed. So yeah, they're not easy to put out. They kind of burn forever in a metaphorical sense. Of course, they won't literally burn forever, but that's kind of the metaphorical character of the Leo. So where the Aries is more like a forceful expression of fire, it's kind of like when they are expressing it, they're choosing to express it, it's going to come out very strongly. It's going to be like this burst of almost like an explosion, bomb, grenade, like I likened it to in the Aries video description of their character traits. But it's almost like a firework, anything that's like a sudden discharge of like this fiery, almost explosive energy. Like, I don't think fire is even like the best description sometimes of the energy of Aries. If they're really agitated when they're releasing it, sometimes it doesn't come across as fire at all. It comes across as literally explosive energy. Is almost like fire flames versus a bomb, like an explosion. Leo isn't as forceful as that because they're constantly releasing this energy. They kind of, it's natural for them to be releasing it because they're releasing it all the time. So they don't throw it out as aggressively as Aries. Plus, they don't have any direct interactions with Mars, so they don't have this more aggressive sort of desire in a sense. So it's kind of like Leo, they're ruled by the sun, so they're more, their fire is more channeled toward themselves. It's more channeled toward not being aggressive toward other people in order to control situations in their benefit, which is more an Aries sort of thing. Leo is more like using their fire to love themselves, feed their own ego, although they do obviously need external validation from others too in order to remain self confident. But Leo, it's like their fire is very personal to them. It's kind of they use it to nurture their own ego, give themselves self love, self respect at a high level at all times, stroke their own ego, as I say. And then they use it to lead others, but they kind of almost they look noble, they look like well intentioned on the outside to others looking in. And the reason they're trying to do that is because they want everyone to treat them like kings and queens, like royalty, because they are like the royalty of the zodiac signs. So because they're ruled by the sun, so because of that, they kind of want that special treatment from others. But they do know, they do have enough common sense to know they're not going to get any special treatment from others unless they show that they deserve it, in a sense. So they do try to maintain this reputation to be good at all times, coming from their side. So one example between a difference between like an Aries sun and a Leo sun person would be if you tick them off, because obviously all fire signs are going to be like quick to anger. All fire signs are going to feel anger intensely. They're going to express it openly. Fire is a very it's not like water. In a sense, it's opposite to water in the sense that water it's intensely emotional, but it's not very outwardly turned. It's more inside and it's expressed deeply on an internal level. Fire is very outward, like it's thrown out incredibly like outward, like everyone can see. Like when a fire sign is angry, everyone will know about it. Whereas water, it's like you probably wouldn't even know that they're angry half the time because the energy is felt just as intensely as fire, but because it's water is expressed more inwardly, they kind of internalize their anger and it seeps and it eats away at them. Fire is more like everyone knows when they're mad because they're going to express everything very openly, very directly. If they don't like you, they're going to tell you very directly. They will not apologize for rude, tactless behavior. They're just going to do it anyway, that sort of thing. So it's almost like, say you're in a bar with your friends and I don't know, maybe you've had a few drinks, your inhibitions are lowered, and you kind of pick a fight almost with a fire sign. Of course, I never suggest doing this, especially if you know that it's a fire sign. Of course, you shouldn't pick a fight with anyone for no reason. That's just not fair at all. But you know that if you know they're a fire sign, like say they're like, I don't know, acquaintances, you don't really know, they're not really friends with you, but you kind of secretly don't like them, and after a few drinks, the alcohol's loosening your tongue and you're starting to tell them you don't like you. If you know they're a fire sign, I would never suggest that because they're all very aggressive when provoked, but I will say if that is an Aries, the person's more likely to throw something at you or physically punch you in the face or do something like that. Because the Aries is very direct and forceful and they don't necessarily care about their image because they know deep down that they are good people and that they are amazing. And they kind of all think they're better than everyone else. So they don't really care about what they look like on the outside looking in, like other people. What other people perceive them as, they don't really care. Leo, though, they're a lot more self conscious about their behavior. Because they want to be treated like royalty, they kind of need this validation from others. They are not going to make a fool of themselves on the outside. So if you piss off a Leo, I think they're more likely to be like more like classy, almost theoretical with their anger expressing towards you. They're still going to want you to know that they're angry. They are still going to explode. They are still fire. It won't be as forceful as Aries or maybe even Sagittarius. They're kind of more mellow in a certain sense. But if you do annoy them badly, it's going to be like they're not going to beat you up because they don't want to. They want to preserve their image, their public image. They don't want to look like an aggressive person. So they're going to be classy about it. The woman's going to be like this perfect movie anger, where like they might stand up, yell at you, swear a few times, throw their drink in your face, and then storm out of the bar. And they're going to think, "Oh look, I look so beautiful," because even though I'm angry, I'm not making a fool of myself. I'm being like professional with my anger, sort of, and I'm putting on a show. It's like I'm at the theatre and I'm the performer, and everyone else is the audience. Everyone else in the bar is looking at me and they want attention and all eyes to be on them at all times, pretty much. So they kind of want to be the performer, like a theatre performer, and they want everyone else to look at them and be the audience. So they're going to storm out, but they're not going to like physically beat you up because they want to preserve this reputation of theirs in public. So they're not going to be crazy with their anger in the same way that an Aries would. They probably won't be screaming and shouting, throwing tables at you, throwing chairs at you. That's more Aries. It's like Leo won't because they're kind of like, well, that's going to make me look like I'm not a king or queen anymore. That's going to make me look like I'm too angry all the time, and I don't want to look like an aggressive person or a bad person or a mean person. So they're going to rein it in slightly because they don't want people to perceive them negatively, even when they're angry. But they do want to perform, so they do still want to tell you that you have annoyed them, but they're not as directly, like physically aggressive as the Aries would be. Um, Although I would also say that the Aries is probably more forgiving because after they've lashed out, which is aggressive in the heat of the moment, but afterwards they kind of either they completely forget what happened in the first place, or they just kind of like move on like nothing happened because their ego's big and it gets in the way. They probably won't apologize to you for overreacting, even if they realize they have done so. But they also won't really hold a grudge. Leo is a bit more like if their pride has been injured, they are less willing to forgive you. They're very generous, more generous than Aries even, when they are just friends with you. But after you've like annoyed them badly, I think they become less forgiving, less generous in that sense after you have crossed them. So yeah, I went on a bit of a tangent there, but it's like basically then. So if you have in your personal birth chart Leo rising, now obviously the sun is then going to correspondingly, the sun is going to be the ruler of your first house and it's going to be the ruler of your rising sign. So your external appearance to others, it's shallow, it's just the first outermost personality you show to people who don't know you very well when they're meeting you for the first time, etc., etc. So to them, they're going to see the sun in you. So your appearance is going to be very. You're almost going to have this aura that's very magnetic. Like people will be drawn towards you naturally. When you come into a room, kind of opposite in a sense to Cancer rising because they're the moon ruling their rising sign. Like me as a Cancer rising, when I come into a room, I don't like to draw too much attention to myself. I get very awkward if all eyes are on me, if people are staring at me. Like if I'm late for like something that I needed to be on time for, I'm already embarrassed and self-conscious. And then if everyone looks in at me and stares at me because I've walked in late, I get highly embarrassed by that. But at Leo, they will not care. They will just stride into the room. They'll barge in almost. They will just like they have excellent posture to their back and spine because the back and the spine are both areas of the body which are ruled by Leo and the sun. As well as the heart is a major organ for Leo, but their back and their spine is also under Leo rulership. So they normally have very straight backs, excellent posture. They always walk with their head held high because they have this pride and the confidence in themselves. But everyone if you have a Leo rising, even if your sun is not Leo, and you're not actually a Leo, if your rising's Leo, you still have this aura of confidence, straight posture, head straight up. You look very confident. You almost look like you're in charge of every situation. You have this prideful aura. People are drawn to you naturally. Like you have this aura. Like people want to approach you. They want to speak to you, introduce themselves to you, give you attention, and you will lap it up as a Leo wise, and you'll be like, I want all this attention, and you will even be quite dramatic and even exaggerate certain things in order to get the attention of other people if you feel like you're not getting enough of that said attention. So that's with Leo rising. You're also going to approach everything very enthusiastically. You're going to have high optimism if you are Leo rising. Sun Leo, of course, well, Sun Leo is the perfect placement for the Sun because the Sun is dignified, because the Sun rules Leo, it's in its home sign. So you're going to just embody all these traits of Leo because that's always what the Sun does. It's individuality, self, personality. But yeah, that's the Sun Leo, obviously. My general description I've done in this video for Leo is going to be applying to the Sun Leos primarily. And then Moon Leo. So the Moon Leo is going to be a lot less obvious, especially if your Sun is not Leo as well, and it's just the moon that's Leo in your chart, you're going to be deeply. The moon is not overly comfortable with Leo necessarily. The sun obviously is a lot more comfortable with Leo than the moon is because the moon is a very feminine planet, and to have it in a sign that's masculine energy like Leo, it's a little bit over the top, a bit intense for the moon to deal with. The moon is a water planet and it doesn't really like fire. But I mean, it's a decent placement. Of course, you're going to be very confident deep down. You're going to have this inner sense of you might be more aggressive than the Sun Leo because obviously the Sun is contented in Leo. It's in a happy, comfortable placement. Moon Leo, not so much. So you might have this inner restlessness. It won't be as like much intense inner aggression as it would if your moon was in Aries, for example. You're not going to be as aggressive, as impulsive as if the Sun is in the moon. Sorry, is in Aries. The moon in Leo is probably a bit more comfortable than the moon is in Aries, so it's not going to be as bad, but you're going to be quite dignified. You're going to be quite generous, quite regal. You will have the sense of self importance over others. But moon in Leo, I tend to like everyone with moon in Leo pretty much, regardless of what their sun happens to be or even their rising, because it's like I don't know, they have this generous aura, but they do also have a lot of self entitlement. They are quite egocentric. The Sun Leo is worse than the Moon Leo for that, though, I will say. But Moon Leo, you're still going to have these character traits of Leo. They're just going to be less overbearing. They're going to be more private, not as openly expressed. Mercury in Leo. Now, this is an interesting placement. You're not going to be as impulsive and tactless with your speech and aggressive and forceful with your speech as you would be with the um, the Aries Mercury, but the Leo Mercury is more dignified, just like Leo and Aries in general. Aries is quite rough around the edges, they're quite animalistic in a way. Leo is much more self controlled, they're more dignified, they've got this regal aura, as I said. So basically, Mercury Leo, you're going to have a lot of ego in your speech. You're going to sound very confident in what you believe in. Whatever you're communicating to someone through spoken word, sorry, is going to be. Everyone's going to get the impression that you are 100% confident that your opinion is true. You will appear quite egocentric with your opinions and your thought processes, and you will be quite stubborn. You're not going to be open to other people's opinions necessarily if they contradict your opinion. Um, you are going to have this prideful sort of speech. You're going to kind of be, you might be condescending in your actual language, like the way you address other people, because you do think that you are the most important and that you're kind of speaking down to someone. And most Leos probably won't realize, especially with only Mercury being in Leo, they probably won't even realize they're doing it. And if people call them upon it, they'll probably be quite upset that they come across that way, because Leos are very, very caring and generous sign. So they'll probably be upset if they do realize that they come off that way, especially with just Mercury in Leo instead of like the sun or the moon or something. But they can come across that way. It's like they have a lot of pride, they have a lot of confidence, they'll speak quite loud, definitely loud. Leos are very loud. They will probably gesticulate with their hands a lot, similar to Gemini. Um, any Gemini placement in like personal planets and any Leo placement in personal planets, I feel like they're the two that gesticulate the most with hand movements, you know, body expressions, facial expressions. They're going to be very almost like they're performing for an audience, like they're going to be very animated in speech. And Gemini is the same way as Leo in that sense. But Gemini does it more to just communicate because their mind moves so quick that they can't speak quick enough to keep up with their mind's thoughts. Leo more because they just want everyone to look at them and they want to be like, excuse me, this is my opinion, listen to my opinion. And if you do not listen to the opinion of someone with Mercury and Leo, they're going to speak louder and louder until you stop talking and listen to them and maybe even validate or agree with their opinion. But even if you don't, they're going to expect you to listen to their opinion. If they're speaking up and telling you what they think about a matter, they will expect you to listen to what they're saying. And if you don't, they will not give up. They will be persistent and they'll speak louder and louder, or they'll just keep bringing it up until you listen to their opinion and even validate it, perhaps. Now, Venus in Leo is a very romantic placement. To have Venus in Leo, very romantic placement. You're going to shower your lover in affection, gifts, material gifts, and gestures. You will probably be the type who will propose in a massive way if you want to get married with someone. Um, you will probably write "Will you marry me" in the sky using like a helicopter or something, and do what I don't know what they call it, but those things where they paint on the sky in rainbow colours, going "Will you marry me?" Proper dramatic, put on a show for everyone, theoretical sort of let's perform, let's act sort of thing, with a marriage proposal that's going to be very intense. Yeah, that's kind of what they do. They're very, very romantic. They're opposite to my Venus, which is in Aquarius. So my Venus could be slightly more detached. It's sort of like a friendship and a relationship are the same thing to them. But no, 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 not with Venus and Leo. Venus and Leo, they're going to be, romance is their lifeblood. They live for love. Like, love is basically what Leo wants to give to the world, to humanity, but they want to get it back as well. That's what they do. Mars and Leo, now, of course, it's not as good as Mars and Aries. Leo overall is less energetic as a sign than the Aries is because Aries has a stronger Mars than Leo does. So, another side of Leo in general is that Leos can be quite lazy. Like, if they really do not want to pursue something, they'll expect everyone else to give them everything they want and need in life rather than going out and working hard to get it for themselves. They'll expect everyone to hand it to them on a silver platter, basically, because they are kings and queens. So sometimes they could get in this self indulgent mode where they just are lazy and they want everyone to give them exactly what they want and need. They can be boastful, bossy, demanding, and they're kind of just lying there like resting, sleeping all the time. Like a lion, in fact. Lions in the wild do that. Like, especially the male lions. The females will go and hunt and the male lion will just sit there and do nothing. They'll just sit there all day. They'll be territorial, defend the territory, but all they'll do is sit there all day, just like purring, just waiting for the females to supply the food for them. Leos can be like that. But also, they're a fire sign. Leos are very energetic. It's just that sometimes they don't use it. They just can't be bothered, so they just like get lazy. But they are a very energetic sign. So Mars and Leo is quite a strong placement. You're going to be quite high in physical energy at all times if you have that placement. It's one of the most energetic signs still. So you are still going to be full of energy most of the time. You're going to have vitality from the sun. So the sun will constantly recharge you with more and more energy. Leos don't feel tired very often, I don't think. So that's definitely another good thing with that placement. Um, yeah, and that's pretty much it. I'm sorry this video's like got a lot longer than I thought, but I think it's because I love Leo as a sign overall, so I've got a lot to say about them. Also, I do think they're kind of a bit misunderstood sometimes because they're not as egocentric as people expect them to be. Leos actually are not even as confident as they look to other people. Like, they want to project this aura of confidence, but really I think deep down, sometimes they do actually lack some self-confidence, and in order to remedy that confidence in themselves that they are lacking somewhat, they will project this image that they are super overly confident, and like super amazing as a person, so that they get this confidence back from other people to validate their ego. But that's because sometimes their ego is actually not as high as it looks, like it's actually low. Sometimes they actually are shy, sometimes they actually aren't confident with themselves, especially after a setback, because Leos will take failure very much to heart and be very upset by it, and even depressed by failure. Even though they're enthusiastic, optimistic as a sign, one of the most, they love themselves and they think they can do anything, but if they can't, they will fall hard and their ego will be flattened. It's easy to bruise their ego as well, easy to offend them, and then they kind of have a low ego, and then they want validation to get their ego back up from other people, outside sources. So in that instance, they will still pretend to be confident and happy, but really they're not. Their ego is actually low. So people think they're arrogant, but I think sometimes they're actually quite modest in a way. And obviously, people be like, "What are you talking about? How the hell is Leo modest?" They're like the least modest sign, the most full of themselves of all the signs, which they are when they want to be. But I don't know. It's not even like Aries. Aries has this like deep inner confidence that doesn't break down easily, but Leo doesn't have that. Their confidence is more for show than anything else, I think. Like Aries doesn't show their confidence, they're more like, huh, I have confidence, end of story. Leo's more like, I want confidence, so I'm going to show it to other people. So that's another difference. But yeah, sorry this video's been so long, but I hope that explained the Leo character. Thank you for listening if you've listened this whole video without like, skipping or just clicking off the video or whatever. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And I'll probably be coming later on this same day with the Virgo video. So I'll see you then. Thank you.